No, of course not, Mr. Ambrose. My mouth dropped open. The voice coming out of Lady Metcalfe's mouth wasn't the usual vulture's croak. It was soft, uncertain, almost demure. Under Mr. Ambrose's cold gaze, she lowered her eyes. Good God, is she possessed or something? Of course we haven't started yet, Mr. Ambrose. You've come just at the right time. May I introduce you to my family? You may, Mr. Ambrose granted with infinite generosity. The raven-haired beauty stepped up beside him. No, not raven-haired. Crow-haired. She's a crow. She's just the sort to pick at rotting carcasses. She's probably just waiting to sink her beak into Mr. Ambrose. She smiled, and it was an artificial smile that didn't reach her eyes. I knew it. I knew she couldn't be trusted. You could never trust females. They were so bloody conniving. Apart from unfortunate young secretaries and other kinds of feminists, of course. She directed her smile at him, and he, although he didn't smile, nodded graciously. More graciously than he had ever nodded at me. 1,000 questions buzzed through my head. Who was she? Why was she here? Why had he brought her? Was she rich? Was he in love with her? Were they engaged? And most important of all, why the blazes were all of my questions about her? I forced my eyes back to Mr. Ambrose. It was him I should be concerned about. Should be. But wasn't. I was concerned about her. Or, more specifically, her and him in combination. My eyes snapped back to her. Heat welled up inside me. The heat of some dark unnamed emotion. Was it possible to want to claw a stranger's eyes out? Well, people said there was such a thing as love at first sight. Why not hate at first sight, then? Miss Linton, my hand, if you please. Blinking in surprise, so suddenly ripped from my thoughts, I looked up at Lord Dalgleish, then down at his hand, which I was clenching so tightly that it was white from lack of blood. I let go as if I had burned myself. Oh, excuse me. No matter, he said, took his other hand off my arm and stepped back from me. His attention seemed to be on something else. He was looking towards the two newcomers. Well, if he wasn't interested in me any longer, all the better. Quickly, I stepped back and ducked into the crowd. Just in time, Mr. Ambrose had spotted Lord Dalgleish. There was a moment suspended in time. The two men's eyes met, and it was as if they were two lions meeting at a Sahara watering hole. They were the kings, the rest of us were just so many zebras and antelopes. Mr. Ambrose prowled forward. Lord Dalgleish, ignoring Lady Metcalfe, who was still trying to engage the newcomer's attention, shook out his mane of golden hair and started to advance as well. People in their way stood aside hastily, as if they felt the tension in the air. I certainly did. Finally, they stood facing each other. I watched from behind the shoulder of a bulky military gentleman who didn't realize he was being used as cover. The two of them stared at one another, waiting for the other to bow first. After seemingly endless seconds, they both inclined their heads about half an inch, at the same instant. Lord Dalgleish, Mr. Ambrose said. Lord Ambrose, Lord Dalgleish said. A shiver went down my back. Lord Ambrose, what the? Mr. Ambrose, your lordship. Mr. Ambrose's tone was arctic, but Lord Dalgleish didn't flinch. He just smiled a friendly smile. A fake friendly smile. Of course, my mistake. There was a spell of silence so intense it pressed against my eardrums. It has been long, Mr. Ambrose said. Yes, it has, Lord Dalgleish said. Quite some time since last we met. The air between them seemed to crackle. Lord Dalgleish started to say something else, but I didn't catch it because at that very moment the evil crow descended on Mr. Ambrose, grabbing his arm again. Come, my dear Rickard, she said with the broadest of smiles. I wish to dance a reel or two. Rickard, Rickard, she was allowed to call him by his first name. Who was this creature, the writer of the pink letters? Well, if so, he seemed to pay a lot more attention to her in person than he did to her correspondence. With a last dark look at Lord Dalgleish, he took her by the hand and led her onto the dance floor. What was that? I heard some lady whisper beside me. Between Mr. Ambrose and his lordship, I mean. I've seen a lot of important people taking the measure of each other, but that was eerie, agreed another in whispered tones. I was inclined to agree. Lord Dalgleish still followed Mr. Ambrose with his eyes. He had his back turned to me, so I couldn't see his expression. But I didn't really want to. Then suddenly he turned, again with his charming smile on his face. Miss Linton, he began. I apologize for the interruption. Shall we finish our? His smile flickered and went out when he saw that I was no longer there beside him. I didn't wait to see what he would do next. By the time the music had started up again, I was already halfway across the room, trying to locate my little sister Ella. I had to find Ella. It was essential that I found her again and helped her through the evening as well as I could. It was also essential that I occupied myself with something, anything which could keep my mind off the fact that Mr. Rickard Bloody Ambrose was dancing in this bloody ballroom, probably only a few yards away from me, with some bloody female I had never seen in my life. I felt like hitting something. Preferably Mr. Ambrose. Or her. Oh yes, he could snap at me and even continue to deny the fact that I was a girl, but present him with a girl with long lashes, a demure smile and a pretty dress, and he was suddenly dancing and going to balls and whatnot. Typical man. Or is he? Whispered that tiny voice inside me. You heard Dalgleish call him Lord. It's not every man who has a noble ancestry but chooses to deny the fact. Wider it. No matter, nobleman or common man, he was still a man. Self-centered, arrogant, infuriating. I should just ignore his antics the way I had learned to ignore most men's chauvinist behavior over the years. But, there was this possessive way in which the black-haired girl had linked arms with him. For some reason I could not ignore that. I spotted them in the distance, twirling over the dance floor, and a stab of envy shot through me. No, I could not ignore that at all. But why? Fuming, I whirled around and left in search of Ella. Bloody hell, why? Asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk. There you are. I swooped down on my prey like a hawk on an unsuspecting field mouse. Well, maybe not quite. For one thing, I didn't grab Sir Philip Wilkins by the neck, but by the hand. For another, I didn't carry him off to my nest on a distant, rocky crag to devour him, but simply dragged him over to a chair next to the closest refreshment table, away from an exhausted-looking Ella. I have been looking for you, I said with a reproachful little smile and more or less forced the lanky, long-nosed lord into a chair beside me. Ella, an expression of sublime relief on her face, dropped into a chair on my other side, out of range of his romantic attentions. All this dancing can be so exhausting, can't it? I asked cheerfully as the first notes for the next dance sounded. I'm sure you've been longing for a break. Well, actually I was rather enjoying, Wilkins began, his gaze wandering with dreamy longing between Ella and the dance floor. So terribly exhausting. I cut him off. This was the perfect time to test a very handy technique for talking with men I had recently discovered. If they were gentlemen, and a lady intimated there was something she might like them to do, they were usually too polite to refuse. Of course, nobody ever used this technique because it was ruthlessly impolite. But then, nobody had ever accused me of politeness. I'm sure you would love a little conversation for a change, wouldn't you? He hesitated. Well, yes, if you think so, but, it works. It works. I must admit I found our discussion of your house in town extraordinary. I cut him off again with a bright smile. So exciting, in fact, that I was wondering, do you have any estates in the country, too? Well, yes. That was all I needed. I let him have it, a full broadside of verbal cannonballs. Wonderful, that is so interesting. How many manors are in your possession? Are they large? Is there good hunting there? Not that I myself hunt, of course, but I find the noise of guns so soothing. Reminds me of good old English traditions, and that an excellent supper will soon be on the table, don't you know? Do you yourself hunt? Oh, forgive me for even asking. You are a true gentleman, of course you hunt. I'm sure you're an excellent sportsman, and that is so important in a man, especially an Englishman, since it's really so central to our national character. I mean, if a German or a Frenchman don't know how to shoot, that's all right, they can drink beer or think up poems and philosophy and everybody will say, here we have a true example of our nation, but with us English, and the British in general, hunting and sportsmanship are so important. Rather demanding, don't you think? But then, our nation is the greatest in the world, I suppose that it is allowed to make demands of its subjects. What were we talking of again? Now I forgot. Oh yes, your family estates. I must ask you, do you have a library? For I am very interested in. And so I went on, and on, and on, until Wilkins' eyes became glassy, and Ella had settled into a comfortable nap. Let me tell you, it wasn't easy to come up with boring subject after boring subject. Dull things to talk of aren't as common as you might think. Why don't you talk about flowers and greenhouses, or romantic love? He'll probably be happy to talk to you for hours then. I snorted, but that was just it. I didn't want him to be happy. I wanted him to finally see what a horrible family he intended to marry into, and run away screaming. So far, though, from the looks he gave me, the only result I seemed to be getting for my efforts was that he intended to marry Ella as quickly as possible and remove her to one of these country estates of his, as far away as possible from her deranged sister. Of course, I said brightly, Ella and I are inseparable. Wherever she goes, I go. Isn't that so, Ella? I elbowed her in the ribs as discreetly as possible. Abruptly awakening from her nap, she mumbled, what? Oh yes, inseparable, yes, of course. I believe that even were one of us to marry, I said poignantly, the other could not survive without her sister. We would always have to be together. Horror washed over Wilkins' face. Like a drowning man stretching out of the water to grasp a cliff, he jumped from his chair and tapped a passing gentleman in a black tailcoat on the shoulder. In the background, the music of the last dance faded as it came to an end. Excuse me, my friend. The words tumbled out of Wilkins' mouth into the sudden silence. He couldn't get them out fast enough. The next dance will be starting soon, and this lady here has held me captive. Has had to sit down for several dances, lacking a partner. Would you be so kind as to oblige? If you wish it, Wilkins, said a horribly familiar, cold, curt voice. You were most obliging in our recent dealings. I owe you a favor. It is too kind of you to say so, Wilkins sighed, relief breaking out all over his face. No, I'm never too kind. Turning, Mr. Ambrose nodded to Sir Philip. Now, where is this lady of yours? Then he saw me. Slowly his eyes wandered up and down my figure, as if he could not believe what he was seeing. He opened his mouth a fraction of an inch. I swear he was about to make a cutting remark about me wearing no trousers. Then his eyes met mine, and he remembered who and where we were. Ambrose, may I introduce Miss Lily Linton? Wilkins' voice was a distant buzz in the background, his gestures meaningless. Miss Lily Linton, this is Mr. Rickard. We know each other, Mr. Ambrose cut him off. His dark eyes didn't leave my face, boring into me with searing intensity. The music had started playing. Around us, people were busy chattering. Nevertheless, in our small portion of the ballroom you could have heard a pin drop. Why you do? Sir Philip looked from me to Mr. Ambrose and back again. So did Ella, who was suddenly completely awake again. There was a pause. Where from? Wilkins inquired, added in a tone of undisguised curiosity and skepticism, as if I didn't exist on the same level as His Mightiness Mr. Rickard Ambrose. Well, I didn't, monetarily speaking, but still, it was pretty cheeky coming from a chap who went about London bombarding innocent young ladies with flowers. We bumped into one another in the street, Mr. Ambrose explained, still not taking his eyes off me. His gaze wasn't just dark and intense, there was something else in it. A promise. The promise of retribution. That's what's in his eyes. A threat. Is he afraid I'd give him away? Shame him in front of London society by revealing I worked for him? Yes, blast him, that's it. Well, he'd just have to learn that I could keep my mouth shut. And he's supposed to dance with me, is he? To hold me lovingly in his arms and sweep me over the polished floor in a passionate whirl. To judge by the arctic look on his face, it was obvious that nothing was further from his mind, so I did him a favor. Not acknowledging his presence in any way, not even nodding to him, I rudely turned my head away. Soon enough, the crow in her green dress would probably appear and whisk him off. There was a heavy silence. No footsteps. He did not move away. He was not whisked off. Blast him, why didn't he leave already? My rudeness was giving him the perfect excuse. Well, Miss Linton. Miss, he called you miss. He admitted you're female. Well, it was rather hard to ignore, considering the ball gown I was wearing. Still, that little admission tugged at my heart, and my head. Reluctantly, I turned it towards him. Well, what? The retort was abominably rude, but that was all right since it came from me. Those dark, sea-colored eyes of his were still fixed on my face. I made the mistake of looking into them and was caught. Blast. He held out his hand for me to take. Miss Lillian Linton, will you do me the honor of dancing with me? My mouth fell open slightly. Was he joking? But then I remembered who this was. No, he wasn't joking. Dear Lord in heaven, how was I going to get out of this? And then something utterly incredible happened. Something more horrible than the Napoleonic Wars and the Black Plague put together. Yes, thank you, I heard myself say in a shy, breathy voice. What the heck was the matter with my vocal cords? How could they betray me like this? It wasn't fair. A hand closed around mine. It was both lithe and muscular, and the grip it exerted was a little too hard for someone asking you for a dance. For a dance? Ah, no, not with him. There was a slight tug on my hand. Not harsh, but insistent. Dazed, I started to move and followed Mr. Rickard Ambrose as he led me onto the dance floor. In my stunned state, I still noticed he moved very differently from Lord Dalgleish, not like a born dancer, but with a harsh, precise force that went beyond dancing. They were the movements of a born fighter. It almost felt like marching beside an elite soldier on a victory parade. No, don't let this happen. Flee, you fool, before doom is upon you. My insides were writhing in panic. But before I could turn and run, before I could do anything, we suddenly were in position on the dance floor, and I felt arms around me. Mr. Ambrose's arms. Blast, why do they have to feel so hard and firm and right? It's not right. My heartbeat picked up, and I hardly dared to look up. I felt like an elephant who had been ordered to dance with the ringmaster. Would I squash his feet? Would I fall over? And what would happen when this madness was over and we returned to our normal routine of work, if that ever happened? The music began. The 4/4 time lent itself to Mr. Ambrose's way of moving. He went towards and away from me as the music required, grasped me when the music demanded, and let go when the music said so. Not once did he look at me or speak to me. We turned, and turned again, and again, and again. Blast, this is maddening. Isn't he going to say anything at all? Apparently not. Nobody could be silent like Mr. Ambrose. Not even a grave, or a whole graveyard for that matter, could compete with him. And as for looking at me, he didn't seem to have any intention of doing that either. Oh no, he was staring fixedly at something in the distance. When we turned again, in time with the music, I saw where his gaze led. Of course, her. He is looking at her. The crow was standing near a window in the east wall, an infuriating smile on her face, chatting with Lord Dalgleish, who stood right beside her. Rage, mixed with an infuriating curiosity, rose up in me. Who the devil is she? The writer of the pink letters. The possibility gripped my heart like a claw of ice. And Mr. Ambrose still wasn't saying a single word. God, the silence was killing me. Somebody would have to say something. And if it wasn't going to be him, it would have to be me. I thought you didn't like social functions, I blurted out. There was a momentary pause. I don't, came his curt reply, finally. Still he was staring into the same darn direction. But this one was special. I had to come. I needed to spend some time with an old acquaintance whom I had not seen for some time. I sniffed. So you've known the lady long? Is it she? Is it she who wrote you those letters? What did she say? What does she mean to him? And why the heck are you asking yourself that question? The lady. His voice was absent and a little confused. He didn't seem to be paying any attention to me at all. Gritting my teeth, I nodded in her direction. What? Oh, Miss Hamilton. Hamilton. So finally, I had a name to put to the evil temptress. I relaxed infinitesimally as I realized that her name was not that of the writer of the pink letters. However, that relaxation vanished the instant I saw again the way he looked at the crow beside Lord Dalgleish, so intently you might have thought there existed nothing else in the world for him but her. Yes, I nodded. Miss Hamilton, you've known her long. He actually deigned to glance down at me then. If his face hadn't been carved from stone, I was sure there would have been a frown on it. His eyes narrowed a fraction. No, whatever gave you that idea? I've only known her for a couple of days. Why the heck did you call her an old acquaintance then? Well, she must have made quite an impression on you, considering you came out of your fortress for her sake and subjected yourself to the nameless horrors of a ball. He shrugged and looked away from me again, resuming his staring. So, I continued doggedly, I assume you'll see more of her in the future, attend more balls than before, now that the situation has changed. His left little finger twitched. I had noticed this was his way of demonstrating extreme annoyance, the way someone else might scowl or curse at you. I suppose, it will be unavoidable for what I have in mind. Oh yes, I'm sure it's very inconvenient to one as mighty as yourself that you can't just order a woman to marry you. You actually have to spend time with her first. How terrible. Really, I should be feeling pity for this poor creature who would fall into the trap of marrying this man. A great deal of pity. So why the bloody hell did I feel so angry instead? He looked down at me sharply, the first time during the dance he had given me his full, undivided attention. How do you know I will be spending more time at social events? His finger twitched again. You cannot have. No, you simply cannot have guessed my plans. Oh dear, he was just as self-centered as all other men. He couldn't hope to rival a woman's intuition. Actually, I think I have, I said as sweetly as possible. He looked up again, staring at Miss Hamilton and Lord Dalgleish, who were still engaged in conversation. I must say I'm surprised, Miss Linton. I didn't think you would figure it out so quickly. In fact, I didn't think anybody could figure it out on their own. I had to work hard to conceal a snort. Please, with your staring at her the entire time. What sort of silly guffin do you take me for? I think it is pretty obvious, I retorted, my tone not a bit sarcastic. Honest, maybe, but not a bit sarcastic. Indeed, well, if I were you, Miss Linton, I'd keep what you know to yourself. If it comes out that you know, you will be in terrible danger. You might end up with a knife between your ribs. My eyebrows shot up. That's going a bit far, don't you think? A derisive snort escaped me. She can't be that jealous. She. Abruptly, he stopped turning. The neighboring couples almost crashed into us, and only because I stirred him into motion again was a collision avoided. She. What are you talking about, Miss Linton? You're. I swallowed. For some reason it was hard to say out loud. Avoiding his eyes helped, so I looked down. Your romantic interest in Miss Hamilton, of course. A frown crept onto my face. What were you talking about? He didn't answer me at first. Looking up, I saw that his beautiful statue's face was even more emotionless than usual. Whereas normally it just looked stony, now it looked completely vacant. He looked as if he was readjusting the gears of his brain. Well, he cleared his throat. I was talking of my interest in Miss Hamilton, of course. You're right, I am very romantically interested. Indeed, you could say, pining with love for her. That would be a very accurate description of the situation. I see, I mumbled, looking down again, so I didn't have to look at his chiseled face anymore. For some reason my eyes started stinging. What was it that caught your fancy? Her figure, her eyes. Her eyes, and her figure, too. And her dress, her manners, and her. Well, she does not have anything more to catch fancies with, but all that she does have is very fancy catching. You could say that I have passionately fallen in love with the entirety of her, not just the individual components. But you like her eyes. Yes, indeed. What is so special about them? I demanded to know, still not daring to look up. I had a suspicion why my eyes were stinging, and if it was correct I wanted nothing less than for him to see my face right now. I saw nothing extraordinary about them. He cleared his throat again. Well, they look very, very ocular, for one thing. What is that supposed to mean? Pardon. This word, ocular, what's that supposed to mean? It is Latin. It is a word denoting everything that refers to eyes. So, what you're in fact saying is that what's special about her eyes is that they look very much like eyes. Now I simply had to stare up at him suspiciously. He wouldn't see my face anyway. He would still be staring at her. I was right. He was. His gaze was still firmly fixed on the lady and Lord Dalgleish. Her nose is very lovely, too, he added, sounding more like a salesman at the London market praising a fish of whose freshness he wasn't convinced than like a passionate lover. Maybe he always sounded like that when he was in love. If so, God have mercy on any poor creature who ever developed real, deep feelings for him. Not that something like that was ever likely to happen. Does it, sir? Yes, indeed, her nose has many excellent features. It is straight, not overly long or crooked like those of some other ladies in the ballroom. It has 2 holes at the bottom, and there is no hair growing out of them. Her teeth are adequate, too, none missing or falling out. I checked. You should always check the teeth first. I believe that's when you're buying a horse, not when you're looking for a prospective bride, I pointed out. Indeed, well, it certainly cannot hurt to check. In any case, what all this boils down to is that I am in love with Miss Hamilton. Passionately in love, yes, I bit my lip. You already mentioned that. And that's the only reason I came to this ball. To spend time with the woman I am passionately in love with. There was no other motivation. Still he wouldn't even look at me. His words were like sharp pinpricks. I knew they shouldn't hurt, but they did. With all my might, I avoided looking up into his dark, sea-colored eyes, staring at the floor instead. Yes, sir, I understand. The dance ended just at that moment, and I had never been so happy about the end of a dance in my life. For once I had no desire to hound him about the contents of the file, or demand equal treatment with men, or do anything else. All I wanted was to be far away from him. I am in love with Miss Hamilton. Passionately in love. His words echoed in my head again and again, refusing to leave me alone. The moment he released me from his grip, I stepped back, not wanting him to touch or hold me any longer. I just managed a brief curtsy, then I turned and ran away through the crowd, wishing that in this ballroom there was just one quiet corner where I could hide. Secret plans and politics. There's no reason to be angry. No reason to be upset. I told myself, chewing savagely on a bar of solid chocolate I had found at one of the refreshment tables. Not in the least. It is typical male behavior, valuing a pretty doll in a ball gown more than a girl who actually chose to go out into the world and do something with her life. And there's no reason why that should make you angry. Not in the least. It didn't help. The chocolate did to some extent, soothing my nerves a bit, but I was still fuming when I reached a table with 3 chairs and slumped down onto the nearest one. And do you want to know what the most infuriating part was? I couldn't even figure out why exactly I was so angry. I mean, it wasn't as though I were entitled to attract Mr. Ambrose's attention or even had any reason to wish it. I was his secretary, no more and no less. It's the inequality of the thing, I finally decided. It wouldn't bother you at all if Miss Hamilton were a sensible female who actually worked for a living and stood up to men and their unjust laws. It is the suffragist in you that has taken a justified dislike to her, that is all. Satisfied with my findings, and very happy about my noble disposition which wouldn't stoop to something such as petty jealousy, I took another bite of chocolate and moaned as the piece melted in my mouth. Oh. The chap who invented this was surely the only decent man living. A true genius and benefactor to the whole world. The solid chocolate did wonders for consoling me. I sat at the table, slowly finding my calmer self again and wondering what step I should take next regarding Ella and her unwanted admirer. Maybe if I just pestered him a little more. Lily, my dear. I froze. The voice that had come from behind me was unmistakable. It was the chief fury of hell. Turning, I saw my aunt rush towards me. But for once, she wore no angry scowl directed at me. Instead, her arms were wide open and there might have been actual tears of joy in her eyes. Come into my arms, most beloved niece of mine. Before I could run for the hills, she had enfolded me in her arms and was pressing me to her meager bosom. Startled, I hugged back reflexively. What was this? Could it be that this wasn't my aunt, but her not-so-evil twin? Or a moving wax replica? Those were the only explanations for the abnormally chummy behavior of the being in front of me which I could come up with. I saw you dancing with Lord Dalgleish, she exclaimed, and suddenly everything became clear to me. This was still my aunt, as she lived and breathed. What did you talk about? Did he seem interested in you? Will you see him again? Oh, Lillian, don't just stand there saying nothing. You are always so quiet, girl. You will never get anywhere if you do not learn how to properly express yourself. We didn't talk about important things really, I murmured, choosing my words with care. I was well aware that I was walking a minefield here. We just talked about, mutual acquaintances, that is all. Wonderful, wonderful, you have made a great start with him. Now don't lose sight of him, do you hear me? If you can secure him, good God, that would probably be the most eligible match in all of England. I waited with bated breath, wondering if she would make any remark about my dance with Mr. Ambrose, too. But she was so full of my dance with Lord Dalgleish that she apparently hadn't even noticed what I had done once that had been over. I had to admit that after a while her profusions on the subject got a bit boring. Not that I had anything against Lord Dalgleish, no more than against any other person in trousers on this planet, but I definitely did not entertain the thought of marrying him. Instinctively I knew that to him, I was no more than a marionette, just like all the other people in this room and all the people of his company. No more than an instrument to be directed according to his will. That was definitely not the kind of person I wanted to be linked with for the rest of my life. My aunt was just in the middle of a hymn of praise on Lord Dalglish's taste in dressing, when I had had enough. Rising, I told her with a more than convincingly faked smile. Forgive me, madam, but I think I am tired of sitting. I will look about and maybe find a pleasant partner to dance with. Oh yes, my darling, do that, and let it be the right one. You mean the richest one. Finally, you understand my concerns. Oh, Lillian, that I would live to see this day. She seemed about to succumb to tears of happiness again. But then, with great restraint, she collected herself and waved me off. Go, the next dance is starting, don't miss your chance, my dear. Certainly, madam. As quickly as possible, I made my escape. In a corner of the room I spied a nice, big potted plant. Wonderful, just what you need to hide behind and take a few minutes break before you have to face the ballroom crowd again. Moving inconspicuously towards my target, I looked left and right to make sure no one was watching and then slid behind the large, dark green plant, only to discover that somebody else had apparently had the same idea. Ella stumbled back against the wall, giving a little shriek, which immediately cut off when she recognized me. Oh Lily, thank God it's you, she whispered, leaning against the wall and closing her eyes. He isn't lurking somewhere, is he? I took a peek around the potted plant. Wilkins was nowhere in sight. No, at least I don't see him. Thank God, she repeated. I swear to you, if he tries to stick another flower in my hair, I will collapse. Oh, I raised an eyebrow. I thought you told me. What was it again? Yes, that was it. You told me it was an honor to be courted by such a great noble, didn't you? She blushed. Of course it is. I mean, I am very honored indeed. He is paying me an enormous compliment, singling me out like this, and I really am flattered that I among all the ladies should be chosen to be the object of his. Put a sock in it, I told her with a goodly dose of sisterly affection. Ella hung her head, still blushing. You don't have to pretend. Not where I'm concerned. Tell me honestly, do you want to marry Sir Philip Wilkins? She squirmed. Well, maybe not very much. So you want to marry him just a little, do you? Maybe just his ring finger and his left foot, and the rest of him can stay a bachelor. Ella suddenly seemed to have an intense desire to inspect her feet. She looked down, avoiding my eyes. If you put it that way. No, I don't think I do. And what about the rest of him? She made a minute movement. Among immovable pillars of salt, it might have passed for a headshake. Say it, I encouraged her. Do you want to marry Wilkins? Go on, you can do it. Do you want to marry him? No. Bravo. I rubbed my hands, grinning from ear to ear. Excellent, excellent. Ella looked up at me, desperation in her face. What's excellent about it? Aunt Brank wants me to marry him. I mean, it's excellent you have admitted it to yourself. You normally don't do that. It's the first step to problem solving. And the next one is. I waved my hand dismissively. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Just at the moment you look like you need something to restore your nerves. To be absolutely honest, I think that's true. Well then, my dear little sister, I put an arm around her and steered her from behind the potted plant. I already felt better. It had always been that way for me. When I was busy solving Ella's problems, my own suddenly didn't seem as important anymore. I have just the thing for you. It's called solid chocolate. Let's see how you like it, shall we? Asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk. Ella accompanied me willingly. We were about half the way towards the refreshment tables when somebody roughly grabbed me by the arm and whirled me around. When I saw who it was, I gasped in surprise. There you are, strange lady. Patsy, I exclaimed, and then was swept up in a vice-like hug, 10 times more forceful than my aunt's had been. With complete disregard for our hoop skirts, which should have kept us at a respectful distance, Patsy crushed me to her, and from the region of my legs, I heard whalebones, 38, groan and crunch. Patsy, I gasped again, pushing her back and looking at her solid figure, her broad, gruff, oh so reliable face. For the moment all dark thoughts about Mr. Ambrose were forgotten. Is it really you? What are you doing here? How did you manage to get invited? I thought old Lady Metcalfe can't stand you and your modern ways. Patsy grinned. Well, she can't, actually, but she is an old friend of my mother's and has to pretend to like me. More to the point, what are you doing here? Well, you know how my aunt is. She always drags me to balls. Not here at the ball, silly. I mean, what are you doing here in London, here in England even? I thought you had emigrated to Timbuktu or something. I haven't seen you in ages. And don't tell me you've been driving around the park presenting yourself to the eyes of eligible bachelors. I know that's what you've told your aunt, because I came by your house to visit when you were out. But I and the other girls have been in the park often enough and haven't seen hide nor hair of you. What are you up to? I bit my lip. Hell's whiskers, what to tell her? I couldn't tell her that I was working for a living, could I? Not that Patsy would have anything against it. On the contrary, I was certain she would wholeheartedly approve. But if I told her about my work, I would also have to tell her about Mr. Ambrose. And for some reason I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that at all. I opened my mouth, not knowing what I was going to say. Maybe a clever explanation would have come to me at the last moment. Yet before I could say anything, the decision was taken out of my hand by a very simple, very common event. Beside me, Ella blushed.